Okay, hey everyone. Hope you are good. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So, well, today we are going to talk about beer, all the things that you wanted to know about beer, but were too busy drinking to ask. Probably sometime you were drinking a beer and just started thinking about how it was elaborated or the process that it needed to go so it can be in your hands. Yeah, so let's start. I'm gonna start with a quote from one of the I think the best beer apologists in the world. Probably let's try to guess who is here by the quote. Can you see the quote?
Yeah.
Can anyone tell me or can anyone try to guess who is the author of this? It's a very important person. Probably somehow we can identify with him. No one?
Is it a cartoon?
Probably, yes. Remember, it's the best beer apologist in the world right now.
Simpson?
Yes, we're talking about Homer Simpson. Okay, so anyone can try to describe the beer in their own words. Anyone? Just try to put words.
I mean, it's an alcoholic beverage. It's foamy.
Foamy alcohol can be refresh you in the summer and keep you warm on the winter or cold days. And there are a lot of things that we can say about beer. Let's just focus on one important note or important thing about this. In Mexico, there are about monthly, there are consumed about 36 ounces per capita. This is just like 3 cans of beer per month. So I know that most of us here are way over about this metric or this statistic. So, well, let's just focus on the main thing that we are developers, and we can relate beer with developers with a very famous urban legend. Probably most of you have heard about this, the Balmer's Peak. This makes rings in you, or make rings for you, this name.
Steve Ballmer from
Balmer's Peak, yeah.
XKCD.
Yeah, well, Ballmer was the CEO for Microsoft, and he came up with a theory, or at least that's what the urban theory says, that computer developers obtain magical superhuman coding abilities when they have blood in the blood, when they have alcohol in their blood, not the other way. There is a concentration of alcohol between 0.13% and 0.14%, something like that. And there is a very famous comic related to this. So basically, the sweet spot is between 0.12 and 0.14. You need to calibrate this, because if not, then you will end up delivering stuff like Microsoft Millennium Edition. So let's start with the history of the beer, or what I say, the beer roots. The first recorded, or the oldest recipe that is recorded, that we have records written records come from Egypt around 5,000 years before our age. Basically, Egyptians used the beer as a religious ceremonies, and it was not a beer that we are used to consume. Probably it was just some kind of flour fermented and added with some herbal spices or stuff like that, and probably just used for getting drunk and not taste the beer. Yeah, I think it's probably that's the same use that we give to beer right now. So there is a theory that says that Egyptians paid the workers that build the pyramids with beer, and it was valued as a nutrition. With its was valued because of its nutritional value. So basically, the beer was adopted as a food or a source of nutrition for the Egyptian people. But actually, there is a previous civilization that also have contact with beer. It was the Mesopotamians in 10,000 years before our age. The only thing that they didn't leave anything written or any record of that. The only way to guess this age is because there are some malted barley scraps and some recipes with beer residues. So probably they were not very good beer drinkers because they leave stuff back there. So anyway, eventually the beer made its way from the Middle East to the Northern Europe because there was a lot of barley crops that were very abundant, and they started consuming beer based on with barley. Probably the Roman Empire contributed to this expansion. Let's just remember that the Romans considered beer as a low quality beverage. The people, the citizens of the Roman Empire drank wine, and wine was like the beverage for high class people, and beer was just left for slaves or laborers or not citizens of the Roman Empire. But mainly on Germany and Belgium, there was a high peak of this, or we can say that the beer manufacturing was established there. After that, then we go to the Middle Age. Thanks to the Germany monks, we can say that we have modern beer because German monks started brewing beer and starting adding hops. That's one of the ingredients that we will gonna see after this. They started using hops in the manufacturing or in the brewery process, giving this what we can consider the modern beer. Because before that, they probably used like spices or herbal stuff just to balance the sweetness from the malted barley. Malted barley can yield a lot of sugar and it's very sweet. So after fermentation, they needed to use some bitter agent just to balance the flavor. And the beer monks found that the hops, that it's a flower, was very good for this because it also could be used for flavor, for adding flavor, and it was just one ingredient instead of looking for different mixtures of herbs and spices and that. So after the born of the modern beer, the British Empire adopted the beverage, and they also had their own brewing process and everything. some of the most popular beer styles right now on that are popular now in our times are based on how the British tried to deliver beer to practically all parts of the world, because they have a big empire back then. So, for example, they delivered beer to the Indian part of the empire, and they noted that beer just decomposed, got bad taste and everything. And so they found that adding more alcohol and hops, more bitterness, the beer will arrive um, normally to the destination, and this gave born to the Indian Pale Ales. So yeah, this is just a bit of history. After that, then we can say that the beer arrived to the New World with the first pilgrims, and now we have beer in our houses thanks to all of this piece of history. So next, we're going to talk about the soul of the beer. Before of that, anyone have questions related to the history?
No.
Is anyone drinking a beer right now? I hope you
Actually,
are.
no.
No, I don't have any beer. I think
Okay.
they are already selling here in Mexico, right?
I don't know. I just have a patch there
Oh,
of
okay.
beer. So don't drink a lot, just sometimes. But yeah. Okay, so let's start to what are the main ingredients for the beer, the soul of the beer. Before that, I would like to mention the Reinkeist Gebot. That's the purity degree. It's like a German purity law. It's also known as the German purity law. It's a regulation or a rule that is still applied today. Beers manufacturing in Germany and our Bavarian country. That states that the only ingredients that could be used for the production of beer were water, barley, and hops. They didn't mention yeast because back then they didn't knew that yeast existed. Just they treated beer as a flour or like cakes. Like they have the remains from last batch, and you started new ingredients and get new beer. So based on this rule that it's applied up to today, we have the four main ingredients. That is first the grains. Mostly, this is a picture of barley, malted barley grains. Those are the basic or the base for all the beers that are manufactured right now. But also we can use wheat or corn or even rice. Like for example, one of the breweries that uses rice is Budweiser. This is for making for reducing costs in manufacturing. So instead of having full batch of barley, malted barley, they just have the necessary amount for the flavor, and then replace the other, let's say like the half of the grains needed, replace it with rice and or some other addition that will yield the same amount of sugar, or that will be later fermented into alcohol. And then just got the base for the beer. For example, here in Monterrey, they use the mesquite fruit for, I think it was for the Indio beer. I'm not sure, I don't remember like that. But yeah, what the grains provide to the beer, they provide the color of the beer. There are several kind of colors of malted barley. This one is pale malted barley, but there are others like red or even toasted barley that adds some other kind of colors to even black barley, black malted barley, sorry, that will be our ingredient to their stouts or all the black beers that are there. They also provide flavor. So, for example, there are some smoked barley there that will add some smoky flavor to the beer. Even the roasted barley can add some coffee-like taste, or some other kind of grains will add like a chocolate flavor or stuff like that. Even the wheat barley, the malted wheat will provide flavors like banana or clove. Also, this ingredient provides all the maltose, that is the sugar that will be converted into alcohol by fermentation. Proteins, yes, beer have a lot of proteins. Mainly the proteins here provides that the foam of the beer remains there. That thanks to the proteins, we have foamy beer, and there is a sustained amount of foam on every glass of beer that you serve. And lastly, it also provides dextrins. Dextrins are what makes the beer taste like not like water. I mean, probably don't have the word for that. It's what provides the mouth feel of the beer. There are some beers that feels like you are chewing actually the grain, very dense mouthfeel, and this is provided by the dextrins. Any questions so far? Okay, let's continue. The next ingredient are the hops. Hops are like a flower. Actually, this plant is the same family as cannabis. Probably that's the reason, one of the reasons that beer is kind of addictive. Hops, yeah, you said it's just a flower. It's used mainly for adding flavor and aroma to the beers. There are like 80 or more varieties of this flower. Each variety will provide different bitterness or different flavor or different aromas. There are hops that make the beer smells like orange or taste like pine oil or something like that. I tasted ones that tasted like pinole. Don't ask me how I know how pinole tastes. It's not a good story. Okay. It provides, as we said, bitterness, flavor, and aroma. This is added in the boiling phase of the process. Based on how much time is left boiling, it will provide bitterness or flavor of aroma. We are going to see that in a minute. And also provides stability. Thanks to the hops, the beer doesn't decompose. So it has a lot of, probably like 4 or 5 months of shelf time. So that's why you can have a beer stored on the fridge for about a month, and it will taste just the same. One of the other things that the hops provides to the beer that is not desired on our beers, they have a component that will decompose with UV light from the sun. This decomposition then turns into that skinky aroma. So any beer that is exposed to the sunlight will develop this skink aroma and flavor. And basically we can say that the beer will decompose. That's the main reason why beers come in dark amber bottles or on cans. I'm not sure why Corona beer it's so popular in the world, because they have a white, transparent, clear bottle. and it's supposed to just decompose with the sunlight. Probably they have a very good logistic transport for the delivery of these beers. So and no sunlight is ever touched the beers. But I don't know. Probably part of the process they have. Also, hops gives the beer another. They share a chemical with chili peppers, capsaicin, that will just open your appetite. It will give you will get hungry by drinking beer, thanks to the hops. So let's go to the next one. The yeast. Yeast is a fungus. It's a live organism that will eat all the sugar, all the maltose in the wort. That's how we said the green beer, or the extract of the malted barley. It's called wort. So yeah, so yeast will eat all of these sugars and then transform them into CO2 dioxide, carbon dioxide, and alcohol. So yeast is used for both fermenting the beer and also in some bottling process to develop the carbonation on the beers. Yeah, it's provided the fermentation. And thanks to the yeast, we can classify beers into 3 main styles. We want to see that soon after this. And also can some yeast add some kind of flavor. So for example, if the 2 main kinds of yeast, 2 main strains of yeast are for ales and lagers. They work on a temperature range. So for example, an ale yeast, an ale producing yeast will start producing the acetyl at higher temperatures. And the acetyl will make the beer taste like butter, like popcorns, like you are eating popcorns. Probably some of you remember tasting the beer like that on Sierra Madre. There was a time in Sierra Madre where they switched the brewmaster and tried to lower the cost of production and started yielding popcorn tasted beer. And some styles, for some style of beers, that's good, but most of the commercial styles, it's a no. So yeah, yeast can also add flavor to the beer. And last but not least, we have water. Water is 95% of the component of the beer. Without water, we could not have beer. There's a funny story about water. On the Middle Age, in times of the Black pandemic plague, people started to noting that drinking beer was more healthy than water. Water was like a source of the Black Plague disease, and the ones who drink beer, they noted that they were more healthy. This was because of how the process was done. They didn't know that boiling the water to produce beer will kill all of the bacteria that created the Black Plague. And even you can see the mugs, that some German mugs that have a cover. They use the cover to prevent their beer getting contaminated by bacteria. So the beer is the most important ingredient for the beer. The water is the most important ingredient for the beer. And the water can also provide some different flavors based on minerals. Like for example, there is one beer that is produced on Czech Republic that's called Pilsner Urquell. The water in that city, in the Urquell city, it's very heavy. It contains a lot of minerals, and that's the reason why that beer tastes different from other Pilsner styles. That's the main reason also that you try a beer here in Monterey and it will taste kind of different, like the same beer on the beach. It's all related to the water and the minerals that they have. We don't have the same water all the world. We have different components in it. And that's all for the ingredients. Does anyone have a question so far? Okay, let's continue for the brewing process from grains to beer. The first step is just grabbing the grains or malted barley and milling it. So we go from this. This is our malted barley, and after the milling, we end up with not flour. It's just like breaking the husk of the grain and trying to expose the contents of that. This is then also, later mixed with hot water in a process called mashing. The hot water will start activating the enzymes on the grain husk, the enzymes that will start decomposing the starch that is on the grains, and will start decomposing into principally maltose. And well, this is just, we can simply say that this will extract all the sugar from the grains. And from there, we go to a lauter that is basically filtering or removing the grain husk wort. This is where we extract our wort. It's like, it will taste like very sugary, like, and yeah, it provides it has a very sweet taste. This wort. It's sometimes used for making milkshakes and some other stuff. So in this process, we just remove the grain husk and get the wort. And after the wort, it's put into boiling. And here is when the hop is added. There are two reasons for the boil. The first one is to reduce the density of the wort, so we can have a desired density for our beer. The concentration of maltose sugars per ounce of wort, and also the more time the hop is boiled with the wort, it will provide more bitterness, because all the oily components of the hop are extracted. For this is like 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, depending on the beer styles. And then if we want to add hops for flavor and aroma, they should be added just at the end. Some kind of beers just add the hops after finishing the boiling, just to get the smell, the aroma, extract the aroma for them, because the aroma will degrade with the boiling, and also the flavor. That's the reason why the hops are added at a late stage in the boiling. And after we have our desired boiling time, then it will be cooled. We need to reduce the temperature because we cannot add the yeast on higher temperature, because yeast is a living organism and will die at higher temperatures. So we need to cool the beer, the wort, to a desired temperature around 60 Fahrenheit degrees. This picture shows a homemade serpentine cooler. It's put it into the wort, and just cold water is used to cool the wort. And once we have our wort cooled, then the fermentation begins. We add the yeast to the wort, and we can see here on the image 2 different beers in process. You can see that the wort is actively on the top, and all the residues go to the bottom. This process will last from around a week and a half, depending on the style of the beer and the health on your yeast. And once the fermentation ends, before that, there are 2 kinds of yeast, and here we can say that both are used for different styles. The mains are lager and ale yeast. Lager yeast works in a temperature around 40 and 52 Fahrenheit degrees, and they do a bottom fermentation. All the activity is on the bottom of the bottle. And the other one is ale. This is the one that works on the top. The picture here displays 2 containers with ale yeast. The ale yeast work at a higher temperature, around 50 to 70 Fahrenheit degrees. And the main reason of that is a bit of history on the yeast. Lager yeast was used on the monasteries in Germany, and basically they just leave the containers on the basement, and the yeast just evolved into working on those conditions, on those temperature conditions, different from the British that will just use the yeast. The storage was different, and then we had different conditions for those 2 kind of yeast strains. So after fermentation, then we have the carbonation and bottling, because we saw that the yeast provides us with alcohol and carbon dioxide. Then some small breweries just add a little bit of sugar or malt extract into each of the bottles, and just leave the remaining yeast on the wort to continue the work, and just put a cap on the bottle, and they will naturally carbonate the beer. But some other breweries will just artificially carbonate the beer, just adding CO2 at higher pressure. This is how for example, the kegs are filled, and they just fill kegs with beer and then put a lot of pressure on CO2 on high pressure, and that's how we end with carbonation. There are some other breweries like Guinness Stout. They use hydrogen. I think it was hydrogen on their brewery as a carbonation source. So you can grab a bottle of Guinness Stout, and you can hear like they have this device inside of the bottle, like a valve inside that. This provides this kind of carbonation because the foam is different from normal beer foam, and that's characteristic for Guinness. But yeah, basically just carbonation, and will make the foam to develop on our beers. So anyone has any question? Okay, let's go to the beer genealogy, or the different style of beers based on the yeast. Here is a brief example of how many different kind of beer styles are there. It's just not clear, blonde, dark beers. We have different kinds of beer based on the yeast. Mainly, there are 3 classifications or 3 root classifications. We have the ales. You saw that the yeast, that is a top fermenting yeast that works at higher temperatures. We have lagers, that is yeast that works at lower temperature and is bottom fermenting. It's a bottom fermenting process. And there is a kind of lambic beers. These beers are just spontaneous fermented. You can say that after they call it the wort, some farmers in Belgium just leave it the wort out there, and from the air, some yeast and bacteria and other stuff will get into the wort and start fermenting that. And this kind of beer, has a very sour flavor, so it's mostly suited for adding flavors for different fruits, fermented fruits to that. We're going to see the difference in that. So we have the ales. The ales can be, I'm going to mention the main or the most popular kind of ales that we can have in the market. We have the pale ales. These are just British beer, plain beer you can have. American ales. It's a different, a little bit different from the pale ales because they have different hops that are more suitable for the region where the beer is elaborated. We have the Indian Pale Ale that I shared you the history of this kind of beer. They have a lot of alcohol and bitterness. Amber ales that are just like pale ales with a different addition of different colors of malted barley. We have the Weiss beer. These are beers that are made of wheat. Brown ales. These kind of beers taste like very nutty, like I don't know, there is a brand right now. This Newcastle Brown Ale. They taste like nuts. And porter and stouts. That the main difference here is it's not very. There is no very different. There is no difference mostly on this kind of styles. There is one difference. The porter was more like for the workers on the harbors in London. That's why they adopted the name. And the stouts were also were used for exportation. So there is one stout, one style that is called Imperial Stout, that was sold to Russia. This was delivered to Siberia, and this kind of stout has a very high concentration of alcohol by volume at around 50%, almost the same amount as a wine has. But yeah, it was crafted this way just so it could stay on the very cold weather on Russia without freezing. And yes, these are the main categories for ales. Then we have the lagers. The lager basically is the most consumed beer, at least here in Mexico and the US. We have the American lager and the light lagers. We can say that brands like Budweiser, Miller, Corona, Tecate, Indio are one kind of American lagers. We have the Pilsner. This kind of beer is, they have a very a flavor that is particular for this kind of beer. It tastes like orange or stuff like that. They are not so much bitterness, but a lot of flavor on this kind of beers. And mainly the styles for lagers are German kinds, export Helles or Kolsch beers. The Kolsch is like the pale ale but it's called a different it's a different name in German. And then we have the box and the Doppelbox. For example, Noche Buena, a beer that is sold on December here in Mexico. It's a bock. There is another kind of bock that I recently tasted. Is made by Shiner Brewery on Texas. This kind of beer was done used to support the winter. Has a high concentration of alcohol, and mainly it's because alcohol keeps you warm when drink it. And also we have these Marchen or Oktoberfest beers. Those are beers that were done on March. Traditionally, in Germany, they are done on March and can be consumed by the October festival they have each year. And those are for the lagers. And lastly, we have the Lambic beers. There are three main kind of this kind of beer. The Yeast, that they use a mixture or a blend of young and old Lambic beer. The other one is the Creek, when they get some beer Lambic, and then they add cherries that are already started to ferment, or they add this to the beer. This is very popular. This is a very popular beer amongst all female friends I have. I don't know why. Probably the taste. It's very cherry flavor, but with a little bit of beer-like taste, probably like that. And also, instead of using cherries, they can add like raspberries or peach or grape, different kind of fruits, and also re-ferment that beer with that. And we end with the fruit lambic beers. And that's all I have for this presentation. I just want to share with you a document. Let me try to. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. There is an organization called the Beer Judge Certification Program. They define a certification for being a judge on beer competitions. And I'm going to show you just a bit of this. Basically, this guideline contains all different kind of beers. You can see here standard American beer, international lagers, all different kinds of beers or styles of beer. So when you try to a beer, a homebrew, some beer, you can follow these guides to try to achieve the desired result. Probably then try to join a competition. There is a beer cup here in Mexico, in Monterrey, in September. So probably by now you will not have beer ready for that. Probably just you can try to start brewing at home, following this guide. So basically here they make a definition on the different kind of hops or malts or even yeast terms, and they have like a definition for the colors of the beer. You go from straw transparent beer to yellow, gold, amber, to even black compact. And the style reference by category, like by the alcohol by volume, the colors, the yeast, the region where it was brewed. And here is an example. For example, the American light lager. It provides a guide for the impression for this, how should this kind of beer, this style of beer should smell like, how should it look, what kind of flavor, mouthfeel, and all the comments and everything. And these are like the vital signs of the beer. We have the IBUs. These are the international beer units. These are provided by the hops. You can see that an American light lager has very low IBUs, and the most bitter beers like the Indian Pale Ales, for example, the 60-minute Dogfish Head has around 100 IBUs, so it's very bitter. The SRM is the color; it's very pale. Pale is yellow, 2 to 3. The original gravity is how we start with our beer after, before the boiling phase, and after adding the yeast, what the final gravity should be, and these are used to define the alcohol by volume. So we go from an original gravity of 1.04, and the yeast will ferment a lot of that sugar and just leave like a gravity of 1.008 and provides a 4.2% of alcohol by volume. And it also have some commercial examples like Bud Light, Coors Light, Michelob Light, Miller. Yeah, I can share you this. I'm going to share you this document on the Slack channel, just for any curiosity that you have to learning more about beers. And that's all. That's all I have. So as this image says in different languages, cheers, salud, prost. Does anyone have any question?
Hey, do you do any home brewing?
Sorry, can you repeat last?
Do you do any home brewing yourself?
I used to do that back in like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I have the desire to continue doing that, but right now it's a bit complicated. But yeah, I have done beer. I have a recipe for a stout using oats, and it was very good. So I will probably, once I start again to homebrewing, probably that will be the first that I will try to make. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably anyone can share us their favorite style, or if they have something, or we can just leave that like that. And if anyone has another question. Okay, then I think that's all, Paulina. So I don't know if you want to add something.
Okay, perfect. Not really. Well, thank you very much for sharing this information, and thank you all for joining. I'll send you the invite for next Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Good job, buddy.
Thank you, Choi.
Thank you.